The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now, from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here are your hosts of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard and Taylor Welch.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for April 19th, 2026. This is season 15, episode number 65, and episode number 579 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. We know who we're playing in the next round of the playoffs. It is our nemesis, kind of in a way, the Port Huron Prowlers. And we say that, you know, with a little bit of a laugh, like you just heard Taylor do, but that's because we have beaten them 7-1 in the regular season. Yeah, I don't think it was easy, really, when it all comes down to the, brass tacks of everything. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And, Taylor, again, realistically, we are playing the Port Huron Prowlers. I think everybody probably expected it a couple weeks ago that in the second round of the playoffs, it would be Binghamton versus Port Huron. But there was a slim hope for the Blue Ridge Bobcats fans that maybe, just maybe, they would be the ones playing against us in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that too, just because it would be very interesting to go our two rounds in the playoffs against teams that we didn't even face this year.
Yeah.
That definitely would have been pretty funny. And I know there was quite a few comments that I saw about, Blue Ridge from last year, you either face Port Huron, that's physical, or you face Blue Ridge, who had the line brawl and that issue. And I understand that point, but at the same time, this is playoffs. They're not going to go out there and start a line brawl and get a bunch of people kicked out of the game when it's the playoffs.
Right.
It wouldn't do that. And if they did do that, then they are very more worried about what happened last year than they are about trying to win a cup this year. And that would just be sad in general. But playoff hockey, as I've said many times, it's so much different than the regular season. And that's why, truthfully, I would have been happy playing either team. It just definitely would have been, I think, in my opinion, more interesting to play Blue Ridge, just because, again, we haven't faced them this season. And it would be the second team going into our playoff run that we didn't even see this year at all. So it just would have been funny.
Yeah, I also wanted Blue Ridge. Because I don't think that Blue Ridge and Binghamton would produce the physically violent games that we've seen Binghamton and Port Huron play, or Port Huron and Danbury play, or Port Huron and Blue Ridge played in the first round of the playoffs. Oh, wait a second here. So anytime anyone plays Port Huron, you would get that. I wanted to see just straight up, just like, man-on-man hockey, like literally Blue Ridge and Binghamton, because I think they would do that without going too far. And
you would have the intensity without the suffering, I guess you could say.
Right, exactly. And I just think that now we're gonna, is there going to be payback by any team going into this? We saw goaltenders getting run on both sides in the last couple games between the two teams. Both games played in Binghamton, and you had Reed Cooper laid out. You had Dominic Tomei cross-checked. Is that going to happen again? Are these things going to become a factor, or is it going to be straight up just, goalie versus goalie and, goal scoring versus goal scoring and defense, and maybe some good, strong checking, which would be fine. But it's one of those things where I wonder what we're going to get. Are we going to get straight up, like, let's play the best defense we can between the two teams, or is it going to turn into a shit show, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your point. And, for most of us, you would just hope that it's going to be that intense hockey where it's just a lot of back and forth, a lot of, two good teams facing each other for the win, and not so much the extra stuff that happens in between. But at the same time, as we've all, kind of picked on Paulin and watched his after-game videos, a lot of what he says just doesn't make any sense. And it's one of those things where you would hope that they come into this wanting to just play hockey, but at the same time, you have no idea with a team like that, and with Paulin behind on the bench there, kind of controlling what's going on. Because again, the after game interviews that he does, just they're they're almost comical in a sense because you like everyone else watched what was going on in the game, and then you ask him certain questions and he completely dodges them, or he just, well, it's Prowlers hockey. That's the only answer you get. Like last night when they asked about Binghamton, he completely ignored that question and was just like, oh, well, we're all just trying to get out of here. Yeah, because you want to avoid talking about Binghamton. We understand now. Yeah,
well, and that's because I think in part there are people that are in this league that listen to the show. And I think what happened here, Taylor, is that I believe that we probably got to Matt Graham. I think Matt Graham probably heard our message, which was that, he's out there. Chris Paulin is out there talking after games, and it sounds more like a WWE event where he's trying to cut a promo. And that's really what it does sound like. It sounds like a promo that he's cutting. And he did it again, on Friday night, where he said Prowlers hockey to every single question asked to him. He just ended it with, that's Prowlers hockey. That's Prowlers hockey. Well, yeah, it's great. You guys won the game. Good for you. Now give us a little bit more insight than just it's Prowlers hockey, because then the next night, on Saturday night, when they played game 3, one of their players basically was answering everything with just it's Prowlers hockey. I think it feels like it's a sideshow for them to do that. So what's the point of actually doing the interviews other than you're just trying to sell tickets? And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, in the regular season, if they lost a game, it was pretty much he played the blame game where it was, he blamed everything on the other team or on this or that, or he'd say something about the refs, and then he would say, well, it's a really hard job for the refs. And
right.
It just seemed like it didn't matter. If they won, completely different narrative. And that's why, I really appreciated what Topeka did when, they had their first game and they lost, but still what he says about the stuff, his team and what went on in the game itself, nothing negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's completely different than what Port Huron does. I feel like they're constantly just a negative atmosphere about everything that goes on unless they win. Then of course it's all, well, we played Prowlers hockey.
Yeah.
But you didn't. That was the confusing thing for me, is that you literally sat there and preached that all you were going to do is play Prowlers hockey. People made signs in the stands talking about it. But that's not what you did, according to your own statement.
Yeah, well, the statement, so define what you think they think Prowlers hockey is.
Well, he said it last night that, because Ben Brockway, which, again, in the first game, he had a penalty, and I openly said I didn't agree with the penalty, but it doesn't matter. It was still a penalty, and it was a 5-minute major. So you now, in the playoff game, go down a man. He got kicked off the ice. Now you have another guy sitting in the box. So you have a 5-minute penalty kill, and you have an extra guy sitting in the box. So that's another player you can't have on the ice. And you have to kill off 5 minutes in the playoffs. And that is something crazy. And then you give up a power play goal in those 5 minutes.
Right.
So definitely not something that you want in your playoff run, in your playoff series, is to do that and go down a man for that long and to let a goal in. And then you go and sit him the next 2 games because, again, he took a bad penalty. Again, I didn't agree with the penalty, but it doesn't matter. It was still a penalty. Still got assessed. It was 5 minutes. It's not a good thing to go down. And you don't play him for the next 2 games in the playoff series, but then you say that he is the epitome of Prowlers hockey. And all you're doing is playing Prowlers hockey, then how come he's not in the lineup for the last 2 games that you won?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Now, the Black Bears, they give us a different post-game kind of conversation. And let's listen to that. So I'm going to play for you first what CJ Stubbs said to me and Tommy Turgan from Fox 40 post-game. And then we'll just talk about that real quick because it's nothing earth-shattering. And it's, basically how pro hockey players and people should talk after series. And so here we go.
CJ, obviously 4 goals, 2 games. You guys complete this series in 2 games, probably like you guys wanted to. Your thoughts on your performance so far?
I mean, I'm just trying to, lead the right way, do the right things. We came out buzzing tonight, our line, and set the tone, and our other lines followed. So, yeah.
CJ, you guys were creating a lot of second chance opportunities in the first period, leading to a couple of your goals as well. What was kind of the scouting report on Bernard, and was that kind of the mindset, shoot low, give some opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, definitely get pucks to the net, get to the net, other guys, and we know he's not very good down low, so, yeah, just get him at his feet and cross the net.
What'd you think of tonight's performance after giving up 3 goals in the third period of Wednesday's game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, last game they had a couple good shots there at the end, but yeah, I know they got a couple there at the end this game, and Kurtz came out with a big goal and kind of set us in the right direction again. So.
Moving ahead to the next round, Blue Ridge or Port Huron, 2 teams that really like to play physical, a little bit of a sandpaper game. What to expect out of either team?
Yeah, I mean, it's playoff hockey, and we kind of set the tone a few games ago against Port Huron, and we don't shy away from it. We actually welcome it, so yeah, bring it on.
Do you guys have a preference who you play?
Nope, we don't.
And that's pretty much it. That's what we got out of CJ Stubbs. I thought he answered things pretty nicely for all the questions. Taylor, your thoughts on what CJ said after Friday night's game?
I'm not surprised by any of it. I mean, I've asked a couple players myself, who would you rather face? And some of the guys like CJ knows Blue Ridge. They know Port Huron. Some of the guys just only know Port Huron. They haven't faced Blue Ridge.
Right.
But still, the overall consensus is that it doesn't matter. You can throw anybody at Binghamton and they're going to play Binghamton hockey. They're going to go into it. They're going to give it their all, and they're going to do everything they can to get that win, because that's what the mindset here is in Binghamton. They're results driven. It's something that I feel like has to be said out there, and that's what you're going to get out of them. And you can see that through every single line. Even CJ said that. Their line went out and set the tone, but then you see all these other lines connecting in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I made a post about it. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, about Tyson. Like, it's like he flipped the switch and he's in playoff mode completely, and he's a completely different animal out there on the ice. And I even sent you a message about the amount of times that he was trying to stuff it behind Bernard in the game.
Yeah.
And he did it so many times that even other players were starting to follow him on that and trying to do the same exact thing.
Right.
So they obviously, whether they remember Bernard from being in Elmira, or if they've looked at game footage and just, understand that, as CJ said, he wasn't that good down low, and that's what they were trying to do. And, getting pucks on him and just constantly peppering, it worked. And that's exactly what they did. So I feel like they understand knowing the different opponents and knowing the weakness and the strengths of said opponents. And I think that's what really helps Binghamton, where I feel like the Prowlers, all they do is, according to them, play their style of hockey. And as the rest of the league kind of looked at it, they just bullied everybody all season, and that's how they got to where they are. That style is not going to help you in the playoffs. You can't go in and have a fight in the first second of the game and have 4 more fights after that, because you can't afford to keep going down, or to be without a guy, or a certain player on the ice for 5 minutes, or get a roughing call, or any kind of penalties that are going to put your team down.
Yeah.
Because in a regular game, if you go down, it's not a huge deal. In the playoffs, it's a completely different story. You let a power play goal in, it's very hard to get that back.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And what do we remember the most about Jamie Bissell this whole season, which is him dropping the gloves every second he could and trying to become an enforcer and trying to become this tough guy that he never was when he was here in Binghamton. I mean, there's been a switch that's been flipped with Jamie Bissell, which is kind of crazy, but he wasn't like that here in Binghamton. I think, if he tried, Brent would probably reel him back a little bit, but very interesting. So let's listen to Brent Sherwood. This is a little bit longer than the CJ Stubbs one, but definitely some good information out there for the fans.
Coach, you want to start this one off, just for the record, being named FPHL Coach of the Year this year. Just lead us off with your thoughts on that this year.
So honored. I think it's been a bit of a long time coming, but you got to earn your stripes sometimes. But those guys in that room, they're the ones that make me look good and execute what I'm trying to preach. So it's a total team effort, and I have to say John Quimbl's a huge part of this award as well.
Topeka scores 3 goals in the third period of Wednesday's game. What did you tell your boys coming into tonight's game to make sure that they were ready for tonight after that third period?
Well, we're very much in similar position as we were on Wednesday. So I think it was all about managing the puck and making sure guys aren't sneaking behind us. But it's mostly having a count on the blue line, keeping the game in front of us, but managing the puck is the most important thing. Putting in the ditch, getting ozone draws, making sure we're taking care of the blue lines, chipping pucks off the white instead of the yellow. Those little habits and details that we've been working on all year.
Can you talk a little bit about the pace of play that you guys had? The second period Bob and I want to say kind of about 2 minutes in the offensive zone, just nonstop. Just talk a little bit about the pace that you guys are playing at right now and how it's working in your favor.
I think it's just a hunt mentality that we've established since the beginning of the year. We want these guys to play with pace and get up the ice and attack and cause a ton of pressure on the opponent's defensemen. So, we're trying to break up plays. We're trying to hunt. And if we're within a sig leg, we're trying to finish our hits and cause turnovers and re-attack as quickly as we can.
During the handshake line, you had a little conversation with Cam Clark. What did you say to him?
Said, I don't know if you would have scored 30 goals with us, but I'm happy you had a successful season. And, he's the stud over there. He's the guy that's getting the most minutes, and he's out there getting the opportunities that he probably wouldn't have got here. So I'm super proud of, what he's accomplished over there. And he's got a great career ahead of him.
Looks like Blue Ridge and Port Huron are going to go to the third game. Advantage you guys, or does it really not matter for you?
I just know we're all going to be glued to that screen tomorrow night, studying both teams. Obviously, we're going to be paying attention to Blue Ridge a little bit more. We're pretty familiar with Port Huron, but whatever happens. We got to take care of business, and we still got the same road.
I asked CJ this. I'll ask you this. Do you have a preference?
I would say Port Huron, just because we faced them before. We're I think 7-1 against them, and we haven't seen Blue Ridge at all this year. So I'd say Port Huron, but there's some good things with Blue Ridge as well. I think it's a little bit closer, and we got a big group that played down in Roanoke, so I'm sure we'll have some fans down there.
Lastly, what did you say to the guys after tonight's win?
Just proud of them, but one step in the road. There's a lot more to accomplish. There's bigger fish to fry. But overall, we set ourselves up for success to go in the second round by getting the job done on Wednesday and then closing it out at home.
All right, Taylor, before I have you comment on that, let me remind you of one thing.
What's the message to the group after a game like that? This is the last time you see these guys in the regular season.
Yeah, nothing's changed with our group about results orientation. We don't get focused or fixated on results.
All right, Taylor, it's up to you now.
I mean, what Brant said just kind of lays it all out there. I mean, literally talk about how they spend the entire season working on these kinds of things and, doing those little changes or doing things that matter, because at the end of the season, if you make it to the playoffs, you have to play differently than you would the regular season.
Right.
And I think that's what Brant pretty much talks about, is that what they do in the regular season is setting them up for, a win in the playoffs. And that's exactly what they were doing. And again, that's what happens when you're results driven. And I can't believe that Port Huron honestly made it as far as they did. And I just kind of has to jump back to what other people have said, is that they've just bullied their way into second place. And, honestly, if that's how you got to second place, then you're not going to make it past us, because the bullying is not going to work against us.
Well, and it really has. And I mean, if there was one game where you could say that, the bullying maybe drew us into the bullying, was still a game that we still won. Right. So you can do whatever you want against the Binghamton Black Bears, but if you don't score more, if you can't score against our goaltenders, and that's one of the things that you got to look at here. The 7 games that the Binghamton Black Bears beat the Port Huron Prowlers, Dominic Tomei was the netminder in those 7 games. He has a shutout win against them. He has a couple 1-goal games against them. He has a shootout win against them. He pretty much has done it every single way possible. So I don't know. Maybe you're not results driven over there in Port Huron, but maybe you need to be if you're going to make it to the finals. And honestly, I love the mantra, play Port Huron, play Prowlers hockey. That's great. It's good. It sells tickets. It's going to get people in. It's going to get advertisers excited. All that stuff is good. I hope the business for the Port Huron Prowlers is good on the business side. But again, if you can't win on the ice in the end, and you allow Binghamton to go into the finals and play against Pee Dee or Columbus or Monroe, whoever it ends up being, did you really win this year? Did you really complete any mission that matters, instead of just being a WWE highlight at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have to agree with that completely. Paulin has just absolutely blown my mind this season. And I probably wouldn't have paid that much attention if I wasn't constantly getting sent the videos of him doing the after game reports and stuff like that. But it's just, again, it's almost comical in a sense to kind of listen to the way he talks compared to, several other coaches who do also the same type of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Port Huron is, I don't want to say lucky to be where they are, because I do think there is a lot of talent on their team. I do think that.
Agreed.
However, when you put the physicality above the talent, you're not going to win when you're in the playoffs like this. It's just, you can't do it.
I agree. The schedule for the upcoming games, what is it? When will it be announced? Binghamton tickets for games 2, which is Friday the 24th, and games 3, which is Saturday the 25th, if necessary, will go on sale Monday at 10 a.m. according to Ticketmaster. So that is on Ticketmaster's website. Game 1, no official announcement has been made, as we're doing our little recording here about 12:41 p.m. on Sunday morning. It could be out later on today that it is Wednesday in Port Huron, but there's no official word on that at the moment. Stay glued to, obviously, the Binghamton Black Bears social media. If you're listening from Port Huron, we'll have you guys all covered on the Port Huron side. And of course, you can check the Fed website as well. But we will also bring all that coverage to the Power Play Post Show Facebook groups and pages that we have out there. So game 1 could be Wednesday. I guess I would prefer that. Then the boys can just travel out there on Tuesday. Depending on the route they take, will take 8 or 9 hours. Or if they go through Canada, it's like 6 hours, 6.5 hours ish. So they can certainly go that way. So they can travel on Tuesday instead of Monday like they did. So maybe they can have today off, Sunday, maybe have a small practice on Monday, and then travel on Tuesday, which I think will be absolutely fine. And then pretty much they'll probably play the game in Port Huron. And my guess is they would travel back that night so they could get into their own beds by a certain point in time and get some sleep, and then really get another good night's sleep on Thursday night going into Friday. So I hope it's a Wednesday game. I hope Port Huron doesn't try to pull some crap and go, oh, let's do it on Thursday, make the teams play 2 games in a row or 3 games in a row, depending on how it goes. I hope they don't play those games.
I do have to. I want it to be a Wednesday game. One, it breaks up the work week. It's so much nicer travel wise for everybody. And I was kind of thinking, well, why would they try to pull any games like that? But at the same time, I just realized that they played 3 games against Blue Ridge, one of which went into overtime. So they probably are tired. So I wouldn't blame them for trying to push it back on their end so they could get an extra day of rest or recovery or whatever you want to call it to try to play on Thursday. But then you have to play 3 games possibly all back to back again. So I don't know. I would prefer a Wednesday game as well. It just seems, I don't know. I really liked last week the way that it went. So I wouldn't mind the same kind of outcome this week. So
no, totally agree.
Let's hope for a Wednesday game.
Yeah, that's what I think they should do. Then both teams can travel, get to Binghamton sometime Wednesday or Thursday morning. And then get the proper amount of sleep. I'd rather have good games where people aren't totally gassed than games where you have teams gassed at the end, and then there's excuses that are being thrown out there. The excuses of travel and the excuses of referees just drive me freaking bonkers. But all right, the Power Play Post Show is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Everybody's been subscribing. It's been awesome. I know the interview with Justin Coachman yesterday went really well if you like my style of interviews, and really bad if you're a Watertown Wolves person that works up there. And that's just the way those interviews can go sometimes. Join the conversation on Facebook, search Power Play Post Show, and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton hockey. And coming up on this episode of the Power Play Post Show, we'll be breaking some pretty big news. with the Fed League Flash's Gary Ryan. So stay tuned for that interview. That will probably start the conversation of what the Fed will look like next year. And there's some pretty big changes on that. So I wanted Gary in, and he and I will also talk a little bit more about the other playoff series as well.
Power Play Post Show fans, do us a quick favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of the show. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you're following the podcast and leave us a rating. It's completely free to do. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells YouTube and Spotify to push the show out to more Binghamton Black Bear fans and more hockey fans just like you. Drop a comment too. We read them, and we love hearing from you.
Okay, so Taylor, on last Thursday, we talked about game 1 in the series between the Topeka Scarecrows. And, we did a nice 30-minute show just basically talking about how that went, what we thought was going to happen on Friday. I think we were pretty close on what we thought was going to happen on Friday. We both thought it was going to be a win, that they were going to sweep. I think the game went interestingly. I want to talk a little bit about my concerns with the Black Bears after we get through talking about basically the details of this game. So let's get started.
All righty. Black Bears take second game at home versus Scarecrows to advance to the semifinals. April 17th, 2026, Visions Veterans Memorial Arena, Commissioner Cup quarterfinals. Game 58 of the season, Topeka Scarecrows versus the Binghamton Black Bears. The Binghamton Black Bears wasted no time setting the tone in Game 2, delivering a dominant opening period in front of a strong home crowd of 4,610 at the Visions Veterans Memorial Arena. It didn't take long for Binghamton to get on the board. At 6:24, CJ Stubbs opened the scoring with his third goal of the postseason, finishing a play set up by Mac Jansen and Dan Stone to give the Black Bears a 1-0 lead. Stubbs struck again just over 3 minutes later at 9:44. He buried his second goal of the game and fourth of the playoffs off another setup from Mac Jansen, along with Ivan Bondarenko extending the lead 2-0 and continuing his red-hot start to the postseason. Binghamton wasn't done there. Late in the period, Zach Sirota added to the surge, scoring his first goal of the playoffs at 19:35. Dan Stone and Kyle Steffen picked up the assist on the play, setting the Black Bears into the intermission with a commanding 3-0 advantage. The Black Bears controlled the play throughout the period, outshooting the Scarecrows 20-6.
What?
And dictating the pace in all 3 zones. That's one thing that I was watching the entire game, because it seemed like we were just dominating the puck possession and just absolutely taking over control. And I kept thinking to myself, if you only allow your team to get 6 goal shots on net, there's no way that you're going to win against the Black Bears. And then I kept looking at the shots clock the entire game.
It's something that we've talked about all season, right? When teams come into and play against the Black Bears, whether it's at home or on the or road, it doesn't really matter. I would say 7 is the minimum, right? You need to get 7 or more shots on goal if you're really going to start challenging the netminders for the Binghamton Black Bears or the Black Bears defense and kind of, find the right lanes to score. You need more than 7 shots easily. Now the Black Bears do have their moments, and we'll talk about that a little bit. My concerns about this team going into the next round of the playoffs in a little bit. Go ahead and finish.
Binghamton did take a pair of penalties, with Nick Swain slashing at the 6:44 mark and Cam Cervoni slashing at the 13:16 mark, heading to the box, but the penalty kill remained perfect, shutting down Topeka's chances. The Scarecrows' lone penalty came at 16:24 when Avery Smith was called for unsportsmanlike conduct. Behind a dominant offense showing in steady play from Dominic Tomei, the Black Bears carried full control into the second period with a 3-0 lead.
Now, Avery Smith was just kind of insane, for a lot of this game. And he was just trying to really kind of get underneath the skin of the Black Bears. He almost was like, playing like Ben Brockway would, for the Prowlers. And it was kind of a shame, because it's like, you don't need to do that. You really don't. You play with a level head if you can. It did feel like his teammates had to pull him back just a little bit in some parts of this game.
Well, I feel like once he ran into the unmovable wall that he hit, after that, he seemed to not try to do anything else of that nature.
Was that
rest of the game?
Was that Jacob Shankar that he hit?
No.
It was Gareth Sargis?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was Garrett Sargis. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That would make sense.
He ran fully into him, and Sargis didn't budge, and he hit the ice. And Jeremy thinks that he even hit his chin off the ice, and that's kind of why he when he got up, he was he had this look on his face like what just happened?
Yeah,
because he seriously he was trying to hit Sargis, and he didn't move.
Yeah,
and I think he found out real quick that maybe he shouldn't try to keep hitting people.
No, agreed. All right, scratches in the game were Matt York, Sam Holy, Scott Romakers, Mason Hohen, Tyler Schwint, Gavin Yates, CJ Hapward, and Brandon Shantz. Starters for the Black Bears were Ivan Bondarenko, CJ Stubbs, Mac Jansen, Austin D'Orazio, Dan Stone, and Dominic Tomei. The Black Bears and the Scarecrows started off with a lot of energy in the first 5 minutes with some timely hits, and the Black Bears with a lot of pressure early. Nick Swain took the first penalty of the game, and the Black Bears were able to, during the PK, get a shorthanded chance, and they killed the penalty. There were a couple penalties in this game where when the Black Bears were killing it, they spent a lot of time in their, in the offensive zone instead of killing it in the defensive zone. They were really good in that game on the penalty kill.
Yeah, I definitely I kept forgetting that they were on the penalty kill because of how much time or these shorthanded chances that they were getting. It was just kind of insane to watch, because at one point I was like, well, why did they do that? Because if they either took the puck out of the zone or just to kill off more seconds and stuff. And then I was like, oh right, I forgot that they were killing a penalty this entire time. So it's just one of those things where I not shocked, but also shocked at the same time, because that the penalty kill is so good, but at the same time, just seeing it still happen just kind of blows you away.
Okay, so my next note is about CJ Stubbs and scoring 4 goals in the first 2 games, and it almost seemed like his impact in these 2 games were almost bigger than anybody else's. And that's not to say anything negative about the Binghamton Black Bears, but it seemed like CJ Stubbs came in with a mission that I am going to make sure that everything that I did in the regular season, it carries over into the postseason, especially scoring 2 in the first game and then 2 in the second game, and so quickly in the games too.
Yeah, I think that's why, Brant made the comment that there are so many leaders on this team. That's why it was kind of nice to be able to showcase some of that throughout the season, especially the last couple games that we had with putting A's on different jerseys and, different people. It's just, I truly think that at certain points in certain games, you will see a player or a couple players or a certain line kind of take the game on their shoulders and just absolutely do what they need to put Binghamton back on top.
Yeah, and even CJ said, the goal from Tyson Kirkby in the third period was just extremely huge. That's the second line there. But either way, great performance. Black Bears end the period with a dominant performance and a strong 3-goal lead. Power play opportunities, Binghamton 0 for 1, Topeka 0 for 2. Shots on goal, like you said already, 20-6, which was insane. Let's go into the second period.
The Black Bears picked up right where they left off, extending their lead early in the middle frame and continuing to control the pace of the game. Just 2:09 into the period, Garrett Sargis added to Binghamton's lead with the first goal of the playoffs. With his first goal of the playoffs, Sargis cleaned up a rebound opportunity created by Zach Sirota, with Kyle Steffen also earning an assist, pushing the advantage to 4-0. Binghamton maintained control through much of the period, limiting Topeka's chances while continuing to generate offense of their own. Physical play picked up midway through the frame, highlighted by a series of roughing penalties at 12:05 involving Jacob Shinkar for Binghamton and Trevor Lord and Scott Koash for Topeka, along with an earlier high-sticking penalty to Austin D'Orazio at 10:18. Despite the continued strong defensive effort, the Scarecrows found a late breakthrough with just 45 seconds remaining in the period. At 19:15, Trevor Lord got Topeka on the board, beating Dominic Tomei high glove side off a setup from Trevor Grasby and Josh LaBelle to cut the deficit to 4-1.
And that won't be the first time we'll see a goal go glove side high past Dominic Tomei in the game. So if the first wasn't good enough, Garrett Sargis puts the Black Bears up 4-0. Again, Sargis was in the right place at the right time, Taylor. If you remember this goal, Sirota put it in. I think Sammy Bernard made a good save to send it to the boards. He was trying to send it over to the boards like goaltenders normally do. He had a good angle on it, and it was right to Garrett Sargis, who just banged it home.
Yeah, it's definitely an unfortunate play when you're a goalie to have something like that happen and to let a goal in. But yeah, one thing that I really like about these lines is a lot of these players they just seemingly be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. The second period was still good for the Black Bears, and you could tell they were sensing a series sweep as they started positioning to play a little bit tighter defense the rest of the way. Topeka break through with 45 seconds left to go in the period just to make it interesting. Now it gets a little bit more interesting in the third period. Power play opportunities in that period. Binghamton 0 for 1 and Topeka 0 for 1. The roughings that happened, the three that happened at the same time, I'm not surprised that they called it that way. With Koash kind of getting a little extra in on the whole thing. So it was very interesting. Shots on goal in that period were Binghamton 10, Topeka 7. Now the totals are 30 for Binghamton and Topeka 13. And you're just not going to win with 13 shots on goal through 40 minutes.
The Topeka Scarecrows showed some push early in the third as they looked to keep their season alive. At 8:03, Jacob Gagnon cut into the deficit, finishing a play from Scott Koash and Josh LaBelle to make it a 4-2 game and give Topeka a bit of life. However, any momentum was short-lived. Just 28 seconds later, Binghamton answered right back at 8:31. Tyson Kirkby restored the 3-goal lead with his first goal of the playoffs, finishing a feed out from Nick Swain to make it a 5-2 and halt the Scarecrows' comeback attempt. From there, the Black Bears remained in control, continuing to generate pressure and limit Topeka's opportunities. Binghamton added insurance late after the Scarecrows pulled goaltender Sammy Bernard for the extra attacker. At 18:46, Jesse Anderson sealed the game, finishing a play from Tyson Kirkby, who won the key faceoff that led directly to the goal, making it a 6-2 final.
Yeah, can I just say, if it's okay to say this, I was happy for Jesse to get that goal, right? Everything that he kind of went through against Port Huron, to me, it was just nice seeing him get that goal. But Tyson Kirkby scoring that goal, it was huge. Was huge. It basically just said, okay, you guys did what you had to do, but we're back. And so getting goals from Jesse and Tyson at the end, I think were important goals for the Black Bears, even just 2 games into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think kind of just talking about Tyson, scoring that quickly after they did, to kill that momentum or to kill any kind of hope that they had, that's something that needs to be carried out for the rest of this playoff run. Is, that's kind of what Port Huron, literally, they talked about it the entire game, is they needed to get the fans involved. They were, at any point, if the fans got involved and that momentum started to get carried, that's where, Port Huron really works their best, is when the fan involvement is there and they have that momentum. So if you can kill that, you're going to kill any chance they have of trying to get a win.
Yeah. The Scarecrows never played out of this game. However, they had a hard time keeping sustained pressure and creating more than one opportunity before the Black Bears took control of the game. I think that was a key part of this game, right? The Scarecrows would come into the zone. They might get one shot off and immediately turn the puck over. Or they would come in, pass the puck once, a second time, and then on the third attempt of a pass, they would turn the puck over and Binghamton would bring it back out. Yet when the Binghamton went into the zone, they went into the zone and started cycling the puck and moving the puck around, high to low, low to high, all that kind of stuff. And the Scarecrows weren't able to really react and recover to that as much. I think that's one of the big keys in this game and in this series, was that Binghamton was able to control the puck longer and have more sustained pressure at any one given time.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, Topeka never played out of the game. It's why I really wish we could have played them during the regular season, because it was a fun, series against them. I mean, even though they did lose and they're out of the playoffs now, which I guess is unfortunate for them, but good for us, type of thing. Yeah. It's hard to feel bad for them in that sense. But I feel like Topeka could be a really good team, and I feel like they have a lot of advantages. And it's one of those things where it's hard to come into Binghamton and beat Binghamton once, let alone twice. Yeah.
So we already talked about Tyson. We already talked about after Jacob Gagnon scored, they were close. Tyson scores 28 seconds later. I think it was great that Jesse Anderson got the goal. what was interesting is, and of course we already talked about what CJ Stubbs said, which was, does he have a preference between Port Huron or Blue Ridge? Nope. And of course, Brant said he'd rather go to Port Huron. Now, here's the thing that concerns me, and I want to talk about that. The Scarecrows can take solace in knowing they made the playoffs in their first season and scored 5 goals in 2 games against the 2-time champs. Going into this series, I felt personally that we were going to sweep the series. I think you felt the same way, correct?
Yes.
Okay. However, I did not think we were going to give up 5 goals in 2 games. And that concerns me going into it. 2 of the goals, the 2 goals in the second game were glove side high that beat Dominic Tomei. So I'm hoping that Port Huron, because they're not results driven, won't go and look at video to see any of that. That's number one. Number two, I just, you know, the third periods for both games where we gave up 4 of the 5 goals, because the first goal in this game for Topeka happened in the second period, but later in the second period, right? So playing solid for 40 minutes, getting those 4 goal leads, and then all of a sudden the defense or something starts to click for the other team, and it's allowing them back into the games. That's the only thing that concerns me about what we saw in the first 2 games.
I definitely understand the concern, and I know for Wednesday's game, you know, there you had, when we did our little, like, who's going to get the amount of goals and that kind of thing, what the score is going to be, you were actually more optimistic than I was, and you were going to shut them out. That's what we were going to go and do. And I definitely, I understand, like, wanting to go into it and have, you know, I would have loved for that to have been the score, but, you know, Topeka is a team that we haven't faced. They have a lot of familiar faces on their team. They have, you know, Robbie Nichols knows some of our players. And so I wasn't expecting to go into this and to just completely blow them out of the water. Like, you know, Pee Dee kind of did with their first or their playoff run. You know, they had 16 goals scored or something, like, absolutely insane. So I wasn't expecting that, just because, again, in my head, the playoffs and the regular season are completely different things. Like, they're almost like different entities entirely. Yeah. Where what happened in the regular season almost means nothing now, because the playoffs, everyone's trying so much harder. That's and fair. Everyone's out there to try to get a win. So for me, the playoffs are just better hockey, because, you know, everyone's giving their all. They're giving their 100%. They're not. You're going to see a lot less of the silly penalties or the stupid penalties, or, you know, the this and that. And even like during our game, when, you know, stuff started to heat up, you actually saw, like, Tyson went in and pulled Shankar away from somebody just to make sure that it didn't escalate. And that's kind of what you expect from your leadership, is that, Jacob Shankar was out there doing what he does and he was getting under their skin. But Tyson went in and he pulled him away, and he was like, we can't let it go too far, because you can't afford to be put in the box. And, you know, in the playoffs, the refs are going to let a lot of things go or not call certain things. They're just going to let them play for the most part. So I take the refs completely out of it, even though I said yesterday that I was upset that they, you know, disallowed that 1 goal, but that was just my own opinion. I don't blame the refs. I'm not mad at them. It is what it is. Yeah. But you know, going into these things, you really have to worry about, like, what your whole team is doing, because you can't afford to have those little scrums or those little instances and, you know, let somebody go to the box. You can't do that kind of stuff. So I definitely wasn't expecting it to be a shutout in either game. I would have loved for it to have been, but I wasn't expecting that. And that's kind of, I guess, where I'm not concerned, because, you know, Dominic has had a fantastic season, but there was that stint where we went, you know, every game was 3 goals allowed. Yeah. And it was like that for, like, if I could look back and check on it now, I'd see, like, how many games in a row it was, but there was a few. So I'm not too concerned about it. And, you know, Topeka, again, is a team that we haven't faced, where Port Huron is. So, you know, I think they're gonna know what they have to do going into this, and that's, I guess, where I'm not concerned. Okay, but I definitely understand your concern. So the win marked the 7th series sweep in the 5-year history of the Binghamton Black Bears franchise, further cementing their dominance as they continue
their postseason run. Of course, they're going to now face the Port Huron Prowlers. With momentum firmly on their side, the Black Bears now turn their attention to their next challenge as their pursuit of another Commissioner's Cup continues. Power play opportunities in the third period, none for Binghamton, and Topeka was 0 for 1. Shots on goal, Binghamton 17, Topeka 11. Binghamton finished up with 47 shots on goal, and Topeka got a few more shots in than they did in the first couple periods. In just one period, they finished with 24. So let's go through our ending totals here.
Black Bears sweep Scarecrows, head to second round. CJ Stubbs scored his third and fourth goals of the playoffs. Zach Sirota scored his first goal of the playoffs. Tyson Kirkby scored his first goal of the playoffs and assisted on another for a 2-point night. Jesse Anderson scored his first goal of the playoffs. Garrett Sargis scored his first goal of the playoffs. Dan Stone assisted on 2 goals in the game for a 2-point night. Kyle Steffen assisted on 2 goals in the game for a 2-point night. Mac Jansen assisted on 2 goals in the game for a 2-point night. Dominic Tomei wins his second game in the playoffs, saving 22 of 24 shots and improving his playoff record to 2-0.
Yeah, and, it was kind of nice. They win on Friday night, and they take care of it. The Black Bears and media, well, except for us because we're doing a show, basically had the weekend off, which was really kind of nice, not having to go to the arena. Yesterday was a nice day. Today it was raining most of the morning. Don't know if it's going to get better for the rest of the day, but definitely nice to be able to just play 2 games, have a Saturday off. I don't think the Black Bears have had a Saturday off in how long, Taylor? Maybe since the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah, because they didn't have a weekend off and every Friday, Saturday. So
they played, yeah. So, which is pretty nuts. Okay, so when we come back after the interview with Gary Ryan, we'll have a little bit of a discussion. We'll start our discussion about Binghamton versus Port Huron. We got a little bit of a preview there, and we'll have another bigger show preview this upcoming Tuesday, as we expect the Black Bears and the Port Huron Prowlers will be starting on Wednesday. So coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show, my interview with Gary Ryan. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers. Hi, this is Brandon Bolchinski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. As promised, we have a little bit of a conversation here with Gary Ryan so we can talk a little bit about the playoffs. And, well, there's another big piece of news that we're going to talk about as well. So he comes to us from the Fed League Flash, and he is Gary Ryan. Gary, welcome to a Sunday edition of the Power Play Post Show. You've been on a couple of these before in the past, but, we got one game that's going to be played a little bit later on today. That will be Game 3 between Monroe and Columbus. Columbus took Game 1. Monroe took Game 2. Exactly how you said it was going to happen after Columbus took Game 1, because you said that the series was probably going to go a different way. And but that's okay. None of us ever get this right, 100%.
No, the Pee Dee Ice Cats fans have been roasting me like you wouldn't believe, but it's all in good fun. It's very lighthearted, and I've given them kudos. It's like, I missed this one.
Well, let's talk about Pee Dee and Athens first, right? So this is the second straight year that Athens has lost in the first round of the Commissioner's Cup playoffs. It will be the last time they can be booted from the Commissioner's Cup playoffs. But we'll talk about that in just a few seconds. Are you a little bit surprised? And this is no disrespect to Pee Dee. Pee Dee came into Binghamton. They played 2 games. Both games were very competitive. They took one of the games from the Binghamton Black Bears. We know that Pee Dee at times and can play very good, and they have this season at times play very good. Are you a little bit surprised that they took it to the Athens Rock Lobsters like they did?
Yeah, I am. There was I made my fearless and baseless prediction that I thought Athens was going to win in 2 games.
Sure, yeah.
But when I did that, I looked at everything with as much of an educated guess as I could possibly muster. And just looking at all the numbers and everything like that, I thought, I don't think these games are going to be blowouts by any chance, but I think Athens, has 2 wins. And, I'm thinking, they're going to win like 5-3, something like that.
Uh-huh.
And Pee Dee, they were just dominant. It was incredible.
They scored 15 goals. They only gave up 4 goals to the Athens Rock Lobsters. And I agree with you, right? Thinking that, Athens is going to win these games like 5-3, 4-2, something like that, right? That makes perfectly sense. And they probably would win 2 in a row. Instead, it's the complete reverse of what you and I both thought, which was, okay, we thought it was going to be one thing, and then it ended up being that Pee Dee actually blew out Athens. And I don't know. It's so weird. I think that last year's team was decent. Steve Martinson put together a very solid team that could perform. They were physical. They could score goals. This year, Garrett Rutledge, same type of thing. Physical team, but they had skill. Yeah, Garrett Milan was in and out of the lineup just a little bit. They brought Gus Ford over in a very interesting trade. And boom, here we go. Another first round bow out for the Athens Rock Lobsters.
Yeah, and this certainly isn't to try and make excuses, but one very big factor in that was the fact that 3 of Athens' big guns were missing for the series. They had Joe Mack up in the ECHL, which well deserved. He's had a fantastic season, and then both Van Durken and Gukharev had to go back home because of visa issues, and that was a lot of offense that Athens lost. But I think they still had a good enough team where I thought they were going to be a lot more effective against Pee Dee, and Pee Dee just outskated them. The effort that they needed with the game in the corners and stuff like that. Pee Dee was just stronger and more able and more skilled, and they put together the perfect 2 games.
Yeah. So now Pee Dee waits the winners of today's matchup between Monroe and Columbus, who are playing Game 3. However, the Athens Rock Lobsters, they are going to be awaiting the announcement that they are leaving the Fed and heading to the SPHL, which is a very interesting development that I think you and I found out within the last week, maybe 10 days. Uh-huh. And now that is something that we can talk about, and we're going to talk about. It doesn't mean, listen, and I want all the fans to know before you give any blowback or whatever, the Athens Rock Lobsters fans aren't losing their team. They're just going to be switching from one league to another, which affects the Fed more than it does the fans in Athens. Exactly. Maybe there's a price hike a little bit, but I think they were already so high priced that I think they can absorb going into the pay structure of the SPHL. At least in my opinion, they've had phenomenal attendance in Athens, which is why this is a bigger hit to the FPHL than it is obviously to the Athens fans themselves. You're still going to have hockey. You're still going to be able to go. And my guess is they're not changing their logo. They're not changing anything. It's going to still be the Athens Rock Lobsters. That makes sense. Your thoughts on this news, because this is pretty big.
Yeah, this not only is a shock to the Fed, but it hurts the Fed. There has been behind the scenes over the last 10 years especially, a little bit of a war between the SPHL and the Fed, especially when it comes to expansion, going into new markets, trying to establish a good presence, particularly down south. And what people might not remember is that when it was announced that a team was going to be coming to Athens, they had originally put in an application with the SPHL. And everything looked like it was going to happen. And then the SPHL's Board of Governors eventually voted down expanding into Athens because there was potentially issues with a minority partner who is no longer even involved with the team. So Athens kind of, if you will, fell back because the Fed went to Athens and said, hey, okay, you can't get in with the SP. How about joining the Fed? Mm-hmm. And Athens said, yeah, sure. So it wasn't their first choice. So this is back to plan A from their perspective, but from the Fed's perspective, this was a very lucrative market.
Yeah.
Very, very, a great ownership group, well established. You are never going to have issues with Athens that you have in some of the smaller markets. And so, the fact that the Fed landed Athens was almost like a coup. And now it's kind of reversed and the tables have been turned.
But Gary, let's think about this for a second. Yes, this is an unfortunate situation for the Fed, and it does affect them in the short term. Mid-South is coming back in. South Haven the Mid-South team is coming in. Minnesota's coming in. I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing because of the travel there, but you've had the success of Pee Dee. And I want to stress here, if you're a fan listening to this show and you're listening to this interview because I'm having Gary on it and we're talking about these kind of topics, Pee Dee has been a success in this league. So has Monroe.
Yes.
So has Monroe. Mid-South has the potential to be a success because of the ownership that will be there in Mid-South with Andreas Johansson. So there are very much good positives from last year, this year, and moving into the forward with them coming in, Mid-South coming in. There are positives here, even though Athens is leaving. Pee Dee, who just beat Athens in the playoffs here this year, are a team that we should be talking about and saying this is a success story as well.
Oh, absolutely. Pee Dee had a great year on the ice, but they had an even better year off the ice. The job that Kevin Boggs and Kupia and the whole management group down there has put together has been phenomenal. And they really knew what they were doing when they tapped into this market. And even though it pains me to do so, I've also got to give kudos to Parker Mescal because he was the one that kind of got the ball rolling with us, even though
100%.
He's not part of it anymore.
Yeah.
But the team that's there now, they just did such a marvelous job with connecting with the community, and in such a short period of time too, because Pee Dee was only announced in early April last year.
Yes.
So, I mean, they did fantastic, and the fans responded. It took about a month and a half for fans to start rolling in by the 4,000s and the 5,000s and the 6,000s, but they did. And, there's a reason why they led the league in attendance.
Yeah, well, I was just going to bring that up. The Pee Dee was first in the league with 4,763, 133,352 fans going through the turnstiles. Now, you're going to take out next season Athens, 4,486 fans on average, 125,000. Great numbers for Athens. Let's be honest. They had a horrible schedule last year. Great schedule this year that they could really kind of cash in on. And it's proof of that. Binghamton was third. Monroe was fourth. And then Topeka, 4,092 fans, 114,574 fans, which was great. And probably even another success story that we could throw into this, but really those top five are really kind of like the teams that are going to be the model franchises going forward. But Columbus, I want to just mention them for a second because 105,000 fans. You've talked about this the last couple years. Can they get over 100,000? Can they finally break through? And they did, and that was absolutely amazing. But it does leave, with Athens leaving, it does leave Pee Dee, Binghamton, Monroe, and Topeka as the 4 teams that are going to have to lead forward for this league being the model franchises.
Absolutely. But you know what? I just have I have a lot of confidence that we're going to see some big numbers in Mid-South this next year too.
Good.
Maybe not 4,000 a game. I'll be conservative, but I think they're going to have a decent showing. They could push 100,000, I think.
Wow. That would be great. That would be great that even if you lose Athens to the SPHL, or that you're going to lose Athens to the SPHL, that you could replace it with another team that still gets you over 100,000. Because one of the biggest successes this year, and this is one of the things that they have not even mentioned on the Fed website yet, they got 1 million fans through the turnstiles this year.
Yep, exactly.
That's. I mean, why are you and I celebrating this if the league hasn't even talked about it yet?
Yeah, I made a big deal of this from what was the first time I guess I started talking about attendance back in like the end of August this last summer, and talking about I think 1 million is possible. I wondered if 1 million was going to be possible last year, and what was it, 905,000. So I mean, even that was decent.
Yeah, good numbers.
But there was an 18% increase in attendance for the league from last year to this year. I mean, that's tremendous.
100%. Okay, so that's the Athens news. It's out there. Boom, there you go. Gary, you're going to have a special show later on today, 8 o'clock, I think, talking about that as well. Some of the there's going to be a few fans that will listen to this before your show, but not many. So some will come to this and hear this maybe tonight or tomorrow after they've probably heard the news from you, which is fine. 100% okay.
You've heard it here first.
But you did hear it here first if you listened to this before 8 o'clock, which is 100% okay. I didn't want to have this conversation with you without talking about that for a few minutes because it was very, very important. Before we get to the Empire Division, your thoughts on Columbus and Monroe, because after Columbus won the first game, you were like, okay, when they go to Monroe, it's a different game there because the ice is different, the arena is different, the snake pit, their fans will it's just a completely different element. And it really did prove that with Monroe being able to snag a 3-0 win. Plus, they had their number one goaltender there. Not that I'm calling out anybody as a bad goaltender, but play your number one. Come on, guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was so puzzled in that first game when Chris Branch was in goal. I just thought, man, that's kind of weird.
It is.
But I had a conversation this morning with Pete Fricano, who is the color commentator for the Moccasins. And I said, I'm listening to this game on YouTube. Was it as loud as I think it was in that arena? And he just responded, louder.
Wow.
That arena has never been that loud. And it wasn't even a capacity crowd. It was 3,900 fans. The place seats 5,700. So I'm sure that they're hoping for a bigger crowd today, even though, sometimes it's tough on a Sunday afternoon. But we'll see what happens. But just the excitement level and the noise level was just so phenomenal last night.
Do you think it's an easy pick to just pick Monroe because they're playing on the home ice for this third game? Or do you think Columbus has enough to potentially, score the upset here?
It's 50-50 in my mind.
Okay.
And when I was looking at the series heading into before we even dropped the puck for game one, my biggest concern with both teams was the goaltending, because both have had flashes of brilliance, and they've also had periods where the goaltending just has not looked good. And so I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think that's what's going to decide this game is whoever is in net, whether it's Masternak and Babin or whoever can steal that game for you, that's who's going to win. And I mean, you just kind of got to wait to see how things play out to find out who that is.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Before we talk about the Black Bears here, let's talk a little bit about Port Huron and Blue Ridge. That went to 3 games. Port Huron obviously getting to 2 wins at home, and Blue Ridge getting the win on their home ice in the Hitachi Energy Center down there in Wytheville, Virginia. I think these were 3 tough games. You had obviously a game go into overtime, which was obviously the first game of the series where Blue Ridge gets the win, and then they come back. Port Huron gets a 5-1 win in game 2, and then they also secure their bid to the second round of the playoffs to play off against the Binghamton Black Bears with a 4-2 win on Saturday night. A little bit of controversy on some of the stuff, but a good series between these 2 teams. I personally was rooting for Blue Ridge because Taylor and I both thought it would be neat if Binghamton had to face 2 teams they didn't face off against in the regular season and have to play them in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. But a good series between these 2 teams.
Oh, absolutely. This was the only series where I take that back. Let me back up here. When I made my predictions for the playoffs, I said definitely this series was going 3 games, and there was no doubt in my mind. Because I saw the 2 teams were pretty equally matched. They both play a physical, nose to the grindstone kind of game. They both have offensive potential that perhaps they don't often see come out in the results, but the potential is there. I think to a healthy dislike for each other, is a good rivalry game. But I thought it was a very entertaining series. It pretty much went the way I thought, but it was definitely a good, entertaining serise.
So now that sometimes, that I always watch your videos, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. And
likewise.
And you know that whenever I disagree with you, I take you to task on something, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is where the Blue Ridge Bobcats fans are going to probably drop whatever they're drinking. They're going to fall out of their chairs. I think you were dead wrong about game 3. When they disallowed that goal, which was not goalie interference in any shape or form, which is not what you disagree. You agree with that. You 100% agree with the fact that it wasn't goalie interference. We're all in agreement on that. I think everybody in the world is in agreement on that, except for 2 referees. Fine, whatever. Hard job. I'm going to give the Chris Paulin. Hey, they have a tough job, but we're gonna play Prowlers hockey. So however, I know for a fact from watching for 40 years, and this is where I take you to task a little bit, that was the momentum changer. That was where the hockey god said, all right, we give it to you, and now we take it away from you, right? And after that is you go into that going, okay, there's nothing that we can do to now win because the hockey guys are against us. The referees have just pulled a goal away from us that they shouldn't have. There's no way that was goalie interference in any shape or form. First of all, I don't think there was really much contact at all. And
it was minimal.
It's very minimal. And I don't think it would have stopped him from, if you take out the player completely, does he make the save? I don't think so. I mean, but that's just me. However, it changes the element of the game. It went from a 2-1 game and it kept it a 1-1 game. And then when Port Huron scored that second goal, the game was kind of over after that. And because the momentum did shift to just Port Huron. Before then, I thought Blue Ridge and Port Huron were pretty evenly matched. After that goal was disallowed, so to me, I do believe it affects the game when a call like that is made that is, in most everyone's opinion, wrong, because it would have been a 2-1 Blue Ridge game. They play a little bit differently than Port Huron plays a little bit differently than after that. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I respect that.
Okay, cool.
I've gotten a couple of personal messages from not Blue Ridge fans, but organization members. I'll say that. Basically saying what you said in more colorful terms.
Well, I'm going to be nice about it. I like you.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I never have a problem with differences of opinions as long as they're expressed in civil manners.
Like I just did.
But anyway, my contention is I don't think that the momentum shifted at that moment. I think the momentum shifted about 5 minutes earlier. Port Huron was starting to carry the play. They were starting to cycle the puck a lot more than they ever do.
Right.
They definitely had an edge in time of possession. They had an edge just with forcing Blue Ridge to play more of a reactionary style rather than setting a tone. The tone had already been set, and basically, if that goal had been allowed to stand, it would have disrupted that. But I think the momentum already was held by Port Huron. That's my personal opinion.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That leads Port Huron now facing the Binghamton Black Bears. It's been I don't know if it's been the most heated rivalry this year between any two teams, maybe in the Empire Division, because obviously Port Huron started off the season against Danbury and all that kind of garbage with Ben Brockway planting the flag and all the fights in those games that they had. And Binghamton and Port Huron didn't have a lot of fights, so to speak. They had some for sure, because that is Port Huron's hockey game, so to speak. But now we get to the point where these two teams, over the last two games that they faced against each other, definitely do not like each other. And before we get to that, I want to say this, and I want to say this to you and get your reaction to it. I think the Topeka Scarecrows and Robbie Nichols did such a good job. I know they lost, but they scored 5 goals in 2 games against the two-time defending Commissioner's Cup champions. That is not easy to do. We can go through and find a ton of games where teams couldn't even score one. I mean, there were 7 shutouts. There were like at least 11 or 12 games that the Black Bears played this year where they only gave up 1 goal. So for a team to go into their first playoff series ever and score 5 goals against the defending champions, phenomenal job by Robbie Nichols. Phenomenal job by Topeka. I just want to throw that out there. I don't want to gloss over the series between Binghamton and Topeka. I want to say that first because, again, really everybody was looking towards Port Huron and Binghamton.
Yeah, and you're right. And Robbie Nichols implemented the best system that he had available to him in playing Binghamton. I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting Binghamton to blow Topeka out, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. I mean, 6-2, that's a little lopsided, but I think it could have been a lot worse. Topeka did stick to their system, especially in the defensive zone. And I know that they disrupted a lot of chances that Binghamton had. I saw, especially Jansen. I saw get kind of frustrated, just a missed opportunity here and there. And who's the other person I saw? Oh yeah, there was Laceland with the couple of shots on goal that he had. He just kind of looking up to the sky, thinking, I should have had that. But anyway, Topeka was great. They played a very aggressive game. It just they came up a little short, but I thought they played the best game possible.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what should we expect between Binghamton and Port Huron? I'm going to guess that you're thinking there's going to be a 3-game series here. I don't know. I got to look at the numbers more because Binghamton, unfortunately, they did take 7 of the 8 games against the Port Huron Prowlers. So we know that Binghamton has had success. Again, it's going to be interesting. What are your thoughts on this upcoming series?
I want to be careful because I don't want anything getting misconstrued. I have an enormous amount of respect for several fans in the Port Huron community. Obviously, we all have a good rapport with Will Wiggleman.
He's great. He's awesome.
Several of the players I've had good interactions with. So I don't want to sound like I am minimizing them in any way, shape, or form because they're obviously they're one of the best teams in the league. Unfortunately, I think you're going against the best. From a Port Huron perspective, unfortunately, the thing that concerns me, again, from a Port Huron perspective, is you've done everything that you possibly can do in 8 tries to beat these guys, and you only successfully did that once. And really, that one time, it wasn't. It was essentially a 2-1 game with 2 empty netters.
Right.
You've thrown the kitchen sink and everything you have in your arsenal at Binghamton, and you haven't had an impact. And you've tried to figure out a way of playing your game, and it hasn't panned out. And I think mentally that's going to start working in the back of the players' minds. It's like, what more can we possibly do? Can they win a game? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to go 3. It might be over in 2.
Yeah.
I just think Binghamton just has that psychological edge on Port Huron, and I think that's going to play a very big part in this series. If Port Huron is going to win a game, it's got to be that game at home. It's got to be game 1.
Okay.
If they have any hope in winning a game,
it'll be interesting. Yeah. They have to win game 1 definitely in Port Huron for sure if they want to have any chance at all. Because I don't think they're going to win in Binghamton. All right, Gary. Before I let you go, some news just dropped. Now you did listen. I don't know if you listened yet. I don't know if you've heard the Justin Coachman interview yet. Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Fantastic.
So, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mean, first of all, regardless of what is going on in Watertown right now, which we're going to talk about a bit of news that has just been announced by the Watertown Wolves that you may not know of because you've been talking to me. But in the interview, before the interview, I did mention that it does look like the Watertown Wolves will be gone. Now, I had been contacted by someone close to the league that had mentioned that there was information that was very likely that the Watertown Wolves may have a buyer, that there were 2 people interested in buying from 2 different groups, and the Watertown Wolves have just made an announcement. Let me read that to you so I can get your thoughts on this before I let you go. Update from team ownership. This is on the official Watertown Wolves Facebook page. Update from team ownership. Information just in from a reliable source, probably the person who wrote this, of potential buyers in acquiring the Watertown Wolves hockey team. We remain hopeful that these discussions will lead to a strong new ownership group committed to the team, our players, and the entire North Country community. Stay tuned. We will know more in 10 days. Now, there was a story out there basically saying that they had 30 days because I think that the league wants to know within the next 3 weeks what teams are going to be in so they can start working on the upcoming schedule. We all know that divisions and all that have to be all decided out and everything. However, I was contacted on Saturday after I released the interview. I was actually at Walmart at the glasses place where you go in and you get your glasses done. And so I had to take a phone call while my wife was getting a pair of glasses fitted from someone within the league, letting me know that this was happening, that this was a potential.
That's great.
Gary, number one. Oh, yes. That is the exact response that is important here. It is important to Danbury and Binghamton and the league that the Watertown Wolves remain. So if this is happening, I'll eat freaking crow all day long about saying I thought the Wolves were going to be gone, to the point of, yes, I'll eat the crow. You can put a little bit of whipped cream and a cherry on top. I'll eat it all day long if this means that the Wolves are staying.
Yeah, pass me a spoon, please.
Yes.
That's awesome.
We want them.
Yeah, and without mentioning a name, I know the person that you are referring to.
Yes.
And yeah, I can verify this is an extremely reliable source.
Yeah.
Just for the listeners, I'll just throw my endorsement there. This isn't just some guy who sells tickets for a team saying, "Oh, I've heard." No. This comes from an excellent source. That is fantastic news.
The fact that they're throwing that out there for the public to hear, because they know, listen, the league isn't stupid. They know that people listen to my show. They know people have listened to the show and they listen to the interview with Coachman, and that there's a lot of negativity right around Watertown right now. That, first of all, they had one of their worst seasons ever in their franchise history. Number two, they've got a head coach that has now kind of spewed some dirt basically on how things went down and how things are going. And they do want the team to remain because, first of all, one of the things that I was told, Gary, and this is very huge for fans to understand, and this didn't come from Andreas, for me, okay?
Right.
Watertown leaves the league. And this is the scenario. Binghamton's travel cost for the season will go up $40,000. Because they have to rent out
chink change.
No, because they have to rent out bigger buses. They're going to go further distances. Yeah. They have to get hotel rooms. All that stuff adds up to a lot of money. It is very important that the league tries to preserve a third team in the Northeast because, yes, Binghamton can absorb it. Danbury may not be able to absorb it.
Yeah, exactly. Danbury's got a much smaller budget than Binghamton does. The other great thing that you got to think in terms of like a domino effect, and in this case, it would be a positive domino effect. Yes. If Watertown is able to get this ownership group put together, and you have hopefully a stronger ownership group than you've had in the past, because Watertown, unfortunately, with the exception of 2 years, has always struggled with ownership.
Yeah.
If you have a strong group there and a strong presence, first of all, the very first thing is that's going to bring back the fans, because a lot of fans stayed away this year because they were basically waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, if you get this new group in, and they're able to basically, if you will, resell the team to the community, that's gonna make that a stronger market. And as a result, you're going to open up potential future doors for other expansion into the Northeast. Because without this, if Watertown was indeed dead and you had Binghamton and Danbury on an island, I don't think you get another team in the Northeast. So this is beyond fantastic.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I certainly hope this works out.
Yeah, we need this as a league to pan out for Binghamton and Danbury and for really the whole league in itself, because you then have Port Huron and Motor City more than likely having to come to Binghamton and Danbury a lot more times, so their travel costs would go up from what they would have projected.
Yeah.
Listen, nobody wants to play Watertown 17 times next year, and if we do, let's make it 16 times and make it 8 and 8. Let's really balance that. If you can't have a completely balanced, schedule, at least give us 8 games there, 8 games here. Make that part of it balanced, because that is good. That's what I loved about the Port Huron schedule with Binghamton. It was 4 there, 4 here. Yep. It was perfect. Yep. That's exactly how it should be. And 8 games is fine. 8 games against Port Huron, 8 games against Motor City. You give us, I guess, 14 or 16 against Watertown, 16 against Danbury, and then the rest is all the Southeast teams minus Athens.
Yeah.
All right. We don't need to talk about that right now. That I didn't mean to bring up the schedule. Schedule is a really bad thing. You've listened to the show. You know I've complained about it way too much. It's the situation
I've joined you in that complaint. And not just with Binghamton.
No.
You know, I mean, my goodness, we had the argument that's out there. Oh, Monroe's a weak team because they played against bottom feeders. Topeka's a weak team. You know, Binghamton's a weak team. You know, we've heard that argument ad nauseum, and I am sick of that argument. I really am.
I am. All right, Gary, thank you very much. First of all, how can people find you, listen to you, watch you, whatever? How can they do that?
Okay. Well, it's YouTube. It's just youtube.com at at FPHL Flash. Of course, I'm on YouTube. That's the main page. I also do have a WordPress page, which is fedleagueflash9.wordpress.com, where I occasionally print articles. I'll be doing that tonight for the outcome of the game between Monroe and Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Awesome. He is Gary Ryan, the Fed League Flash. We had a lot here to talk about, and we did it in just under 40 minutes, so we did a pretty good job there. Gary, thank you very much for coming on. I always appreciate it, and I don't know what microphone you're using right now, but you have that perfect radio deep voice right now.
That's just me being tired.
Fair enough. He is Gary Ryan with the Fed League Flash, and Taylor and I will be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash. Big news that the Athens Rock Lobsters, Taylor, is jumping ship from the FPHL to the SPHL. I know that's something that we really will dig into more when we get into the off season, but your initial reaction to hearing that Athens isn't going to be here next year because they're going to be playing in the SPHL.
I guess I'm both shocked and not shocked because, we had kind of talked about it, and that's where Athens originally wanted to be when they first became, the Athens Rock Lobsters was, the SP. So I guess that part, it's not shocking, but at the same time, if they're going, are they taking all the players that are on the team with them now to the SP? Because then, that's one kind of thing is if they're taking all the players with them, then, okay, whatever. But at the same time, you look at it and then some of the roster things that they did this season don't quite make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
And, that I guess that's the more confusing part is what's going to happen with these players. And, because there's a lot of talent on that team.
Well, and
I wouldn't knock that against them, but, they also got beat their first round, which is something that I wanted because I was I didn't want, if let's say it was, us against Athens for, the cup and then, either Athens wins or we win. And then they're out next season. It doesn't look good for the league. So I'm very happy that they're out first round because they're leaving. But I do feel bad for the players.
Well, I think for the players, what will happen is because they are under FPHL contracts and not under SPHL contracts, there will be a dispersion draft, which means basically the remaining teams will have a chance to pick the rights up of them in the FPHL. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't be signed to SPHL contracts once the Board of Governors kind of approve and put them in there. But they can't just take the guys because there's going to be some rules set up by the SPHL on how they can acquire players. Now, they can easily take Garrett Milan and play him up there in the SPHL. They can, if they wanted to. Well, they can't. Well, they could. They could sign Gus Ford if they wanted to an SPHL contract. But it really does factor in on that. to me, it's just some very interesting news. I am a little surprised that the Athens Rock Lobsters were 2 seasons into this league and 2 first round, what they lost to Columbus last year, right?
Yes.
They lost to Columbus last year and now Pee Dee this year. It's too bad that they'd be leaving, but it is what it is. We'll talk more about that in the summertime. All right. Support the Power Play Post Show by subscribing on YouTube. When you subscribe and like episodes, it signals to YouTube that hockey fans are engaging, which helps recommend the show to more viewers. As our community grows, and it's been growing, it's been awesome, we're able to deliver more interviews, insights, and hockey discussions. Subscribing and liking is the most effective way and completely free way to support the show. Join fellow hockey fans and subscribe on YouTube today. Okay, so obviously, folks, we know we're going to be facing off against the Port Huron Prowlers, whether we like it or not. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's fine. I mean, just gives us another reason to beat them and whatnot. But obviously, the Port Huron Prowlers make things crazy for us in so many different ways. We talk about Chris Paul and we talk about that. So, Taylor, I'm going to ask you this question right now. And I think I know your answer to this. But will it get ugly again between the Black Bears and the Prowlers?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I really, based on what the Prowlers have done all season.
Yeah.
And what they've done in the playoffs so far. And even though their whole mantra is, Prowlers hockey, we're playing Prowlers hockey, that's not what they're doing. They're not going into this. They're not starting a fight 1 second into the game. They're not doing 15 other roughings or fightings during the game. And I think that does kind of take away from what they're able to do because that's the way that they've played their entire season. Mm-hmm. So when that's kind of what you're used to doing or you're used to, sitting in the box, that kind of stuff, I think it kind of limits the amount of things that you can actually do. And on the other end of that, with how disciplined Binghamton has been this year, I'm not saying that tempers aren't going to flare and there's going to be some pushing and shoving after the whistle. Of course, there's going to be that. But do I think it gets to the extent of there's, 100 penalties or, 1,000 whistles going on because of little things happening? I really hope not. And I'm hoping that the discipline side of, the Black Bears is that if something starts up like Tyson did to Shankar, you go in, you kind of skate him away and just get him out of the situation. And I really hope that's the attitude and, the mental side of this that they carry forward going against the Prowlers. Because I feel like either A, the Prowlers are going to come into this trying to play Binghamton style of hockey, which they can't do against us, or they're going to try to be rough and physical, and Binghamton's just not going to allow it. And if they don't allow it, then you're doing nothing but hurting yourself.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. They did have some physicality that happened, against the Blue Ridge Bobcats. They definitely had their issues there. Last game, Gavin Yates and Blake Anderson got injured. Last game, both goalies saw contact from each team against them. I'm hoping we don't see that side of it, but there was a lot of physicality between Binghamton and Port Huron the last couple games, and it just makes me wonder if we're going to see that high intensity of physicality, or are we going to see more of a strong forecheck battle, and then you see after the play scrums, after the whistle scrums. I don't know yet. I guess we won't really know until probably like the end of the first period of the first game, and we go, okay, this is the style of hockey we're probably going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to depend, and it's going to depend on what happens in that first game as well. Because if we, let's say we go to Port Huron and we stomp them in their own barn, is Port Huron going to then turn around and play exactly how they played that game in Binghamton? Probably not. So it's probably going to be a little bit different each game depending on how, the previous game went. At the same time, I feel like it's going to be interesting no matter what. I'm fine with the physicality as long as it doesn't, you have to mind that line. And when you're in the playoffs, it's either a really thin line or you have there's some gray areas where you can probably get away with some pushing and shoving.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do you really want to chance that type of stuff? The other side of that is the physicality. You don't want it ramped up too much that we'd see players get injured, because we did see that from both teams, as you mentioned, Blake Anderson and Gavin Yates both got injured, and then the goalie's getting, run over, hurt, hit, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So on that end, I don't want to see that. I'm fine with the physicality as long as you're you got to keep it somewhat toned back.
Yeah, no, you do, because it is the playoffs, and it's it's a 3-game series, so you can easily hurt yourself really bad. That if in game 1 you do something really stupid and get yourself kicked out of a game or suspended, or if you get injured based on some sort of craziness. So we don't want that. All right, Taylor, as we're talking about previewing, obviously, and we're going to do a lot more of that on Tuesday, why don't you give us a reminder of how the regular season went between the two teams?
So on April 3rd, the Black Bears versus the Prowlers was a 5-1 win.
Mm-hmm. That was the last game. Yeah.
March 13th was a Black Bears versus Prowlers, a 4-0 win. February 14th was Black Bears at Prowlers, which was a 6-5 shootout win. February 13th, Black Bears at the Prowlers, which was a 5-3 win. December 6th, Black Bears versus Prowlers, which was a 3-1 win. December 5th, Black Bears versus Prowlers, a 9-1 win.
Oof.
November 1st, Black Bears at Prowlers, a 4-1 loss. And October 31st, the Black Bears at Prowlers, a 5-3 win. So in other words, the Black Bears went 7-1-0. Home, the Black Bears were 4-0-0, and away they were 3-1-0. Only one game on February 14th went into overtime, a Black Bears 6-5 win. The Black Bears scored 38 goals in the series, and the Prowlers scored 18.
Yeah, now the goals scored for the Black Bears is 3.8. It's about a 1.5 below their normal average for the whole season. So that tells you that obviously the Prowlers play a little bit better, defense than most teams. Now, if you look at it, I think the Black Bears scored 5 goals in one game. There's 5 in 3 games, 6 in another game, 9 in one of the games. But the thing that stands out to me in those results, and I think this is something that needs to be talked about, the Prowlers only scored 1 goal 3 times and then no goals in one of the games, of course, March 13th. That's half the games. They couldn't score more than 1 goal.
And I think that's exactly how they need to go into the series, is just not allowing them to get close to Tomei or to get many chances at all. I think they have to control the pace of the game and just puck possession.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. What are you most interested? I know you've started looking at the roster between Port Huron, who was on the roster like in the first game we played against them versus the last game we played against them versus the playoff roster that they have now. And I think even Dietrich and the other D1 player who actually just scored in the playoffs here, Ryan Alexander, I think is his name. We've faced basically all those guys, but we'll talk about that more on Tuesday. But what are you most interested in figuring out coming into this series when it comes to previewing these two teams?
I'm not really sure. I was definitely looking at the roster, but as you kind of said, we've pretty much faced everybody on this team, so there's no big shock, coming into this of, oh, well, we've never faced this guy, or they've changed their roster, or, we haven't seen them in forever, which could be something that we run into when we face, the Continental team for the finals, if we get to that point.
Right.
So I'm not sure what, I'm really, looking forward to the preview here. Is just, I'm just kind of excited for the games to start. I kind of want to see, how it plays out. So yeah, as far as the preview, I don't know, because we've seen the Prowlers, several times this season. We know
a lot about them.
Yeah, so and we know a lot about their arena. They know a lot about ours, and we've had the advantage in both. So I'm very excited for this series to start. I truly hope that it's a Wednesday game. So I guess as far as my preview, I was just looking forward to seeing, does Port Huron play their games like you said and try to make it a Thursday game, or do we get lucky and have a Wednesday game?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. What's going to be interesting to me coming into this is how the two teams come into game two, right? Regardless of what the result is in game one on Wednesday-ish, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, we'll say Wednesday. No matter what the result is coming out of that game, how do the two teams come into Friday night in Binghamton? I'm going to guess that they're going to sell probably about 1,000 tickets per day leading up to Friday, and you're going to have well over 4,000 fans there, if not a sellout, on Friday night. Because if they win, and they've already won on Wednesday, they're going into the finals, and I think a lot of people are going to want to be there. They're going to sell a lot of tickets on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? But what I'm kind of curious on is how the two teams come into that game. I can't imagine that the Black Bears are going to prepare any differently than any of the other games that they've played this year. You know, they're going to watch some video about the Prowlers, maybe a little bit on Thursday, however they prepare. None of it's going to change other than the fact there's a Wednesday game, and that changes how much practice time you're going to have. But otherwise, I'm kind of curious, how does that first period of game two look? Because that to me will really tell me, oh yeah, Binghamton can finish this in two, or, you know, they're going to need to, you know, go to a third game.
I do agree with you, but at the same time, I'm on a Brant Sherwood mindset right now, and I want to see what happens in that first game. We need to get through that first game, and then I'll worry about, you know. Okay. Because I do agree with you that it's definitely going to be interesting. Because again, it's not going to matter what happens in Port Huron. Definitely, that second game is going to be the more interesting one, in my opinion. So I do 100% agree with you on that part. But at the same time, I also don't want to think about it at the moment.
Fair enough. All right, coming up this Tuesday on the Power Play Post Show, we're going to have an interview. I'm trying to figure out the whole scheduling thing so I can figure out who to ask to come on. But it is a player that I'm interested in, and somebody who has played a part in the storyline between Binghamton and Port Huron over the last couple games. So I hopefully can secure that interview and maybe record with him tomorrow. And that'll be for Tuesday. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we are going to give you the most in-depth preview between the Black Bears and the Prowlers that you'll find anywhere. It's that simple. We're going to talk about the Prowlers a lot on Tuesday. So much so that Wednesday will be a relief that we're not talking about them. We're just watching them. And then we'll be talking about them. Either way. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. Taylor, did you listen to the Justin Coachman interview yet?
I have not listened to it. I've seen a bunch of comments. I've seen a bunch of people talking about it.
Yeah.
I even saw a comment from him on one of the things. I don't remember exactly which one.
Did he? Oh, I think I had to go find it.
It was, I believe it's on the Watertown's Booster Club page. They had made a post talking about him. And it's kind of like, in a sense, like pointing a finger, name calling, but at the same time, both sides were they handled it well enough, like the way that they talk about things. Like it's not like, you know, like a drama filled type of thing that you'd see on Facebook type of thing. It's actually kind of, both sides are, you know, kind of well thought out and well said, in my opinion. But definitely very interesting. I did kind of warn you. I was like, it's going to be hit or miss for, you know, certain people. I'm like, they either still love Justin Coachman and what he's done and what he's, you know, has been able to do for Watertown, or there's the other side of that where they're salty about him for certain reasons, or they dislike him, or, you know. So it's definitely been, I've seen both sides. I've seen the hit or miss. I've seen people, you know, really like the interview. I've seen people, you know, not like the interview just because they listen to it still, but, you know, they just dislike Justin Coachman. So I've seen it going around. I just haven't had the time yet to listen to it. Cause again, you got to talk to everybody for several hours and
Fair enough. All right. The Power Play Post is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Join the conversation on Facebook. Search for Power Play Post Show and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. Thank you to Rob Lepolis, our MC, John Patitucci, our musical director, and from the Fed League Flash, Gary Ryan. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And we'll talk to you on a very big preview edition of the Power Play Post Show when we talk about the Port Huron Prowlers and Binghamton Black Bears second round matchup the next time we talk to you right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.